Hello students, welcome to my channel Learn and Grow with Ranjit. Students, today I am going to explain you a very important lesson from your first flight book, and this is the second part of the lesson, Long Walk to Freedom by Nelson Mandela. I've already uploaded a video on the first part. I hope you have enjoyed the video. Students, in this video, as I told you, we will be talking about the remaining part of this lesson. Students, as you have already gone through that video, so you may be aware of what sort of incidents were discussed in that part of the video. I'm not going to discuss about all those incidents, but a very brief recap I'll do for your better understanding. Students, but before I proceed into the explanation of today's part, let me tell you one thing. That is, in order to understand the complete explanation, I want you to go through the entire video so that you don't miss out any important points from the explanation. And I hope that you all will do that. Okay? So, a brief recap of what we discussed in the previous part. Students, I've talked about what sort of lesson is this. It's an autobiography written by Nelson Mandela himself, and he talks about the preparations for the grand celebration. He talks about how he felt on that occasion. He talks about all those leaders, his comrades who sacrificed their lives for the freedom of South Africa. He talked about apartheid system, where the blacks, the original inhabitants of Africa, were made to suffer for a long time. And today let us see what Nelson Mandela tells us in the lesson. He talks more about that day's celebration, and then he talks about his life, his more experiences of life, about the struggles which he made, and many more things. Okay, so I will read out the lines from the lesson, then I'll explain it to you in details. So I want you to watch this video with full concentration. I hope you will do that. Okay, students, let's proceed to the lesson. That day had come about through the unimaginable sacrifices of thousands of my people whose suffering and courage can never be counted or repaid. I felt that day, as I have on so many other days, that I was simply the sum of all those African patriots who had gone before me. That long and noble line ended and now began again with me. I was pained that I was not able to thank them, and that they were not able to see what their sacrifices had wrought. So he tells us that he had come across unimaginable sacrifices of thousands of people. So many people sacrificed, so many of them suffered, and they had the courage which can never be counted and it cannot be repaid. On that day he was feeling just like the other days. He felt that he was nothing, just the sum of all those African freedom fighters who had gone before him, who were dead. And if there would be a line, that line, it would end with him, and now it would start with him. And he was very much pained to think that he was not able to thank all those leaders who sacrificed their lives for the freedom of their country. And those people were not alive to see what result their sacrifices had brought. Wrought here means achieved or done. The policy of apartheid created a deep and lasting wound in my country and my people. All of us will spend many years, if not generations, recovering from that profound hurt. But the decades of oppression and brutality had another unintended effect. And that was that it produced the Oliver Tambos, the Walter Sissolis, the Chief Lutolis, Yusuf Dedus, the Bram Fishers and Robert Subukwis of our time, men of such extraordinary courage, wisdom and generosity that their like may never be known again. Then he talks about the policy of apartheid, the policy of racial discrimination, where people are discriminated on the basis of the color of their skin. And he says that this policy of apartheid has created a deep and lasting injury and wound in his country and his people. And he says that all of them will spend many years, if not generations, they'll spend many years to come out, to get that wound healed or cured. But again he says that decades of oppression and brutality, that cruelty and decades, 20, 30, 10, 20, 30 years of, many such years of brutality, oppression, it also produced some famous patriots, and he's naming them like Oliver Tambo, Walter Sissolis, Chief Lutoli, Yusuf Dedus, Bram Fisher and Robert Sobukwe. All such extraordinary people of extraordinary courage, wisdom and generosity. If such times, tough times would not come to the people of South Africa, then this type of patriots would not be created. Perhaps it requires such depths of oppression to create such heights of character. Very important line, students. He says that it requires such type of depth of oppression. Unless they would have gone through those problems, they would have gone through those tortures, those sufferings, then people of such extraordinary qualities would never be created on the soil of Africa. But I have always known that its greatest wealth is its people. He says that his country is rich in minerals and gems that lie beneath the soil. South Africa is a very rich country, blessed with rich natural resources in the form of precious minerals. But he says that the greatest wealth of South Africa is its people, finer and truer than the purest diamonds. Those people are finer and they are more true, they are truer than the purest diamonds also. Let's see what he has to say next. It is from these comrades in the struggle that I learned the meaning of courage. Time and again, I have seen men and women risk and give their lives for an idea. I have seen men stand up to attacks and torture without breaking, showing a strength and resilience that defies the imagination. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the trump over it. So he says that from these people whom he has named, he learned the meaning of courage. He has seen people risking their lives, some have even given up their lives for an idea. He has seen men standing up to attacks and torture without breaking. They showed great strength, and resilience means the ability to deal with hardship and recover from the effects of those hardships. This is resilience. I learned, then he says that he also learned that courage is not the absence of fear, but the trump over it. Courage is not absence of fear. Where there is no fear, there can't be courage. But the ability to defeat what? Fear. The ability to defeat it. It's not absence of fear, but it's the trump over it. If you win over fear, that is courage. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. And he says that a brave person is not the one who does not feel afraid of fear, but the one who conquers, who defeats that fear. No one is born hating another person because of the color of the skin or his background or his religion. People must learn to hate, and if they learn to hate, they can be taught to love, for love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. Then he says that no person by birth, since the time of birth, no one is born hating someone because of the color of their skin or his background or his religion. They all learn it when they grow up. No one is born with such negative qualities. And Nelson Mandela tells us that people must learn to hate. That is important according to him. People must learn how to hate, because if they know how to hate, they can learn how to love. And according to Nelson Mandela, love comes more naturally to the human heart than the opposite of it. Even in the grimmest times in prison, when my comrades and I were pushed to our limits, I would see a glimmer of humanity in one of the guards, perhaps just for a second, but it was enough to reassure me and keep me going. Man's goodness is a flame that can be hidden but never extinguished. He says that even during the harshest, the toughest times in the prison, he and his comrades, when they were pushed to their limits, means pushed to the last point in our ability to bear pain. They were tortured in such a way that even the last strength, the last ability to tolerate the torture was about to end. Even during that time, he could see a glimmer of humanity. Glimmer is what? A flicker, or a twinkle. A flicker. Have you seen a candle's flame? It flicks, no? Flickers when it burns. So a flicker of humanity was seen in one of the guards, though it was for a very short time, maybe it was for a second, but that was enough to reassure Mandela and his team from going on, from continuing their journey. Man's goodness to keep me going means to keep continuing his journey. Man's goodness is a flame that can be hidden but never extinguished. Very important line. He says that the goodness in man is just like that flame. It can be hidden, but it can never be extinguished. It cannot be put off. Okay, I hope you have understood. Let's proceed to the next. In life, every man has twin obligations. Very important part of the lesson we are discussing right now. Okay, I want you to concentrate, students. See, in life, every man has twin obligations. Obligations to his family, to his parents, to his wife and children, and he has an obligation to his people, his community, his country. He says that in life, every person has got twin obligations, two very important responsibilities. That is his responsibility. Okay, obligation means things which a person is bound to do that arise out of a sense of duty, that arises in him. No one needs to remind you of that. No one needs to tell you about that desire to do that. That sense of responsibility is within you. And he says that every man has such two obligations. One such obligation is towards his family, his parents, his wife and children. It's one part. And the other part is his obligation to his people, community and country. That are the two obligations. In a civil and humane society, each man is able to fulfill those obligations according to his own inclinations and abilities. Okay. Humane is where the people have compassion, kindness, sympathy for others. Such type of society is saying. So in a humane society, every person can fulfill both these obligations according to their own inclination and abilities. Inclination means natural tendency of behavior. They have natural tendency to do that because the atmosphere is like that, they can do. But in a country like South Africa, it was almost impossible for a man of my birth and color to fulfill both of those obligations. He says that in a country like South Africa, and a person like him who was a black, treated as black, in the category of black, for him to fulfill both that obligations was not an easy job. In South Africa, a man of color who attempted to live as a human being was punished and isolated. The problem was that in a country like South Africa during those times, anyone who wanted to live like a human being was punished, and he was isolated, means kept alone from the rest, separate from the rest. In South Africa, a man who tried to fulfill his duty to his people was inevitably ripped from his family and his home and was forced to live a life apart, a twilight existence of secrecy and rebellion. I did not in the beginning choose to place my people above my family, but in attempting to serve my people, I found that I was prevented from fulfilling my obligations as a son, a brother, a father, and a husband. Then he says that it was not easy. Anyone in his country at that time, if anyone tried to fulfill his responsibilities properly, that person was made to stay apart from his family in a lonely place, and that person was declared as a rebel, an outlaw who has gone against the law. And then he also found that in the beginning he did not place his people above his family, but when he started serving his people, he found that he was also prevented to fulfill his duty as a son, brother, a father, and a husband. Hope you are understanding me. He realized when he started serving his people, he realized that he was not only distracted to perform his obligation towards his people and country, not only that, but even he was not allowed to perform his duty towards his family properly. Okay, his duty as a son, a brother, a father, and a husband. Let us see what Mandela has to tell us more. I was not born with a hunger to be free. I was born free, free in every way that I could know. Free to run in the fields near my mother's hut, free to swim in the clear stream that ran through my village, free to roast mealies under the stars and ride the broad backs of slow-moving bulls, as long as I obeyed my father and abided by the customs of my tribe. I was not troubled by the laws of man or God. Then he says that I was not born with a hunger to be free, but I was born free. When I was born, that time I was born free, free in every way that I could know. Free to run in the fields near his mother's house, free to swim in the stream, run through his village, free to roast mealies under the stars, and then riding on the backs of the slow-moving bulls. All these things he enjoyed. And till the time he obeyed his father, abided, followed the rules of the custom of his tribe, rules and customs of his tribe, he was not troubled by the laws of man or God. No one was there to trouble him. It was only when I began to learn that my boyhood freedom was an illusion, when I discovered as a young man that my freedom had already been taken from me, that I began to hunger for it. Then he says that only when he grew up, he realized that the freedom which he had during his childhood was just an illusion, means something that was not real. It appears to be real, but actually it's not. And then as a young man, he understood, he discovered that his freedom had already been taken away from him, and then he began to hunger for it, feel hungry for that freedom. At first, as a student, I wanted freedom only for myself, the transitory freedom of being able to stay out at night, read what I pleased, and go where I chose. Later, as a young man in Johannesburg, I yearned for basic and honorable freedoms of achieving my potential, of earning my keep, of marrying and having a family, the freedom not to be obstructed in a lawful life. Then he's talking about transitory freedom, means temporary, not permanent. He wanted freedom for himself, freedom to stay out at night, to read what he liked and to go where he wanted to go. Then when he became a young man in Johannesburg, he longed for the basic and honorable freedoms of achieving his potential, his capability, of earning, saving money, of getting married, of having a family, the freedom, and also the freedom which was not to be obstructed in a lawful life, a freedom which will not be obstructed, which will not be disturbed in a lawful life. But then I slowly saw that not only was I not free, but my brothers and sisters were not free. I saw that it was not just my freedom that was curtailed, but the freedom of everyone who looked like I did. That is when I joined the African National Congress, and that is when the hunger for my own freedom became the greater hunger for the freedom of my people. So he says that at the time he slowly realized that it was not only he who was not free, but his brothers and sisters were also not free. Here brothers and sisters talks about the people of South Africa. It was not only his freedom that was reduced, curtailed means reduced, but the freedom of everyone who looked like him. And then he decided to join the African National Congress, and that was when the hunger for his own freedom became the greater hunger for the freedom of his people. It was this desire for the freedom of my people to live their lives with dignity and self-respect that animated my life. It completely changed his way of thinking, changed his way of life, because he was living with the desire for the freedom of his people, so that they can live their lives with dignity and self-respect. They will have a value in the society, and they will have self-respect for themselves. This thing changed his life. It transformed him. It changed him completely. A frightened young man was changed into a brave one, a bold one, that drove a law-abiding attorney to become a criminal. A person like him who was an attorney, a lawyer, he changed himself, and according to the law of the white people, he became a criminal. That turned a family-loving husband into a man without a home, that forced a life-loving man to live like a monk. A person like him who had responsibility, who had a family, was forced to live without a home, and a life-loving man like him was forced to lead the life of a monk. But I found that I could not even enjoy the poor and limited freedoms I was allowed when I knew my people were not free. Then he says that whatever exceptions were given to him, that was, he didn't like to enjoy that. He could not enjoy that when he saw that his people were not free. Freedom is indivisible. The chains on any one of my people were the chains on all of them. The chains on all of my people were the chains on me. He said that freedom cannot be, it's not divisible. You cannot divide it. If my people are not free, the chains on any one of my people, even if a single person of my country, if he is not free, it means the entire people of that country are not free. And the chains on those people, restrictions on those people, were restrictions on himself. I knew that the oppressor must be liberated just as surely as the oppressed. A man who takes away another man's freedom is a prisoner of hatred. He is locked behind the bars of prejudice and narrow-mindedness. I am not truly free if I am taking away someone else's freedom, just as surely as I am not free when my freedom is taken from me. The oppressed and the oppressor alike are robbed of their humanity. Very important thing. He says that he knows that the oppressor and the oppressed. Oppressor is one who oppresses someone, one who tortures someone, one who discriminates someone. And the oppressed is the victim. Sorry. And he says that both must be liberated. Both must be set free. A man who is taking away someone's freedom becomes a prisoner of hatred. He cannot come out of that thought. He gets into that prison of hatred. He's locked behind the bars of prejudice. Prejudice means a strong dislike without any reason. Just because that person is a black person, I may not have personal enmity with that person, but still, if I have prejudice, I'll not treat him as my equal without any reason. Narrow-mindedness. Prejudice and narrow-mindedness, then that person's thinking ability will become very narrow. He will become narrow-minded. And he says that I'm not truly free. If I'm the oppressor, I may not be truly free if I'm taking away someone else's freedom. The same as when my freedom is taken from me. Situation will be the same when my freedom is taken away from me. If I take away someone's freedom, I can't be free, because it will be the same situation as if someone has taken away my freedom. The oppressed and the oppressor alike, both, okay, oppressed and the oppressor are robbed of their humanity. Their humanity is robbed, stolen from them. So this is what Mandela has to say here in this lesson. He talked about very important issues here. He talked about his life, tough life in Africa before independence. He talks about how he and his people all were made to face such hardships, and how a person like him became very brave because of those hardships. It changed him from a frightened young man to a very brave man. And all this has happened because of those operations, apartheid system and all that. And then we have read already, we have discussed in the beginning part of this lesson how they were able to achieve their independence and how they were planning, they were celebrating their inauguration day in a very grand way, with so many international delegates and leaders coming to their land. So this is about the lesson. I hope you have understood and also you have enjoyed the lesson, because it's not just a lesson, students, it is really a motivation for us. We should learn from the lives of such great men. Some people, they break up completely due to hardships. They surrender to the hardships. But the life of Mandela and leaders like him motivates us to do something great even during the darkest hours. I hope the story will continue to motivate you as well, and go through the lesson nicely so that it becomes clear to you and you will be in a position to answer any type of questions. And one advice to you, if you have any doubts regarding this lesson, you can share me your doubts through the comments, and I'll always try to clear it. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you find the video really helpful, do not forget to like it, share it, and if you have not subscribed my channel, please do that so that you will be getting the notifications of my videos directly and you will be benefited. And do share it so that other people, other students, your friends, your non-people also get the benefit. Thank you so much for watching this video.